this button actually do something. So let's try to do that. So in index.js, we know how to do this. Right? Let's try to open these side by side. Oh, wait, what did I do? There you go. So, when, I knew it was going to do that. When an event happens, do something. So the event is going to happen to what element on the page? The button. It's the thing being clicked. So let's grab the button. How do we grab the button using JavaScript? Sorry? Yeah, query selector, right? So document.querySelector. Pass it a string, which is a CSS selector. Just button is fine. The name of the element, we'll find the first element on the page that matches it. Now we need to save this to a variable somewhere so we can actually do something with it. How do we save it to a variable? What do you do, Matt? What do we do? Const button equals, that'll be just fine. Const button equals document.querySelector button. Let's write the function that's going to make it do something. I'm going to name it change text. But I don't know how to do something like that yet, so I'm just going to make it alert as before, because it's all I know how to do. So how do we make that happen? Now we have the thing that's going to happen. We have the thing that the event's going to happen to, but how do we listen for that event to happen? Yes, sir, Jacob. Yes, we add an event listener. We add it to the button because that's where the event's going to occur. Button.addEventListener. Pass it 2 arguments. The thing that happens and the thing we want to do when it happens. So click, the string click, and then the function that will run. Change text. Not change text parentheses, just change text. And if our calculations are correct, and we refresh the page, and we save, don't forget. Yeah! All right. Now let's make it do something a little more interesting. Who asked earlier, what if we have 2 buttons on the page? Let's make that happen. Ah, cuss. Make another button. No, click me. What if we want that button to be the one that actually does something? How do we tell the two apart? How can we change our query selector to get the second button? Feel free to change the HTML. Remind me your name. Monsi, that's right. Query selector all would get us an array with both. But what if we want to actually just target the one directly? Don't tell me. Don't tell me. You're 8,000. You're calling 8,000. All right. Give it an ID. How about that? ID equals, and ID is a, what part of an element? It's an attribute. That's right. ID equals mega button. Sure, why not? So how do you target that with a selector? How do you target an ID with a selector? Who knows? Get element by ID is a totally different method we could use instead of query selector. Yes. But if we wanted to use query selector, does anybody know selector syntax for an ID? That totally works. Yes, the pound sign, or as kids today call it, hash, right? Actually, we've been calling it hash for a long time, but now you say hashtag. But whatever. And we called it mega button, right? So that will get the second button. So if remember to save that, remember to refresh. First button no longer does anything. Second button, yeah. You should only have one element on a page with any given ID. HTML is very tolerant of your mistakes. So if you do put two with the same ID, it's not like the page will refuse to render. But your JavaScript may behave unpredictably because you've violated the rules. So remember, only one element on a page with a given ID. What's an alternative to IDs if we do have more than one on a page that we want to share the same value? Class. So we can also use classes for things. Maybe our H1, let's put a paragraph here. Welcome, friend. Let's make a paragraph with a class of greeting. And let's make a button with a class of greeting. Now what? First of all, how do you target a class with a selector? You use hash with a pound sign for an ID. What do you use for a class? Do you know? Who knows? Yes. It is. So we could say dot greeting, and that would find the first element on the page with that class. But we want specifically the button with that class. Starts with an N. Nathra, that's right. I'm going to get it. So what if we specifically want a button with that class? Do you know how we can change this? Selector. So this is any element with a class of greeting. We want specifically a button type element with a class of greeting. Button dot greeting, yeah. No space between them. So this is combining an element selector and a class selector so that both things have to be true for it to match. So now that will not match this paragraph. It will only match this button. Does it work? Refresh the page. Yeah. Very good. Now, before we get any crazier, I'm going to go ahead and make another commit. Get add dot, get commit -m. I'm going to write an imperative sentence. Say yeah when the mega button is clicked. Get push. Cool. Now I named my function text. That gives you a clue what I actually want it to do. What if we had it change the contents of that paragraph? Oh. How can we do it? So first of all, inside our change text function, we're going to have to know about the paragraph, right? How can I grab that paragraph and save it to a variable? Yep, remind me your name? Abhishek, right. I'm going to ask every time until I get them. So document.querySelector. What selector could I use to grab that paragraph? Yeah, Jacob? P.greeting. A paragraph with the class of greeting. If we had other paragraphs on the page, it would not match them. It would only match the one that we're trying to do. We want to save that to a variable, so I'll say const. I'll just call it P. If we wanted to make the point that it doesn't have to match the name of the element, we could actually spell out paragraph. Why not? Or heck, we could call it greeting. Whatever you want to call it. Now we want to actually change the content of that thing. Yes, sir. That is one way that we can do it. Yep. So he said paragraph.innerHTML. We're going to use innerHTML tomorrow. I want to show you a different one right now that works if you're dealing only with text. So if there's only text content inside something and not any other elements, we could do paragraph.text content, camel case like that. There's also one called inner text, but inner text is not standard. Text content is. So first, let's just prove that this thing does anything. I'm going to do a console log out here outside the function. Console.log paragraph.text content. Refresh the page. Paragraph's not defined. Of course it isn't, dummy. So I'm going to move this out there too. I'm just doing this to prove a point. You don't have to do it. So there we go. Welcome, friend. So paragraph.text content shows us whatever the text is between the opening and closing tags. So we could use that to retrieve the text that's already there, and we can use it to set the text that we want to be there. So we could say text content equals you done clicked. Refresh the page. Try clicking. Hey, check that out. Got it? Now, the two buttons were just to make a point earlier. It's kind of silly now. I'm going to get rid of the first one and change this text to, how about change text? Refresh, change text. There you go. If it needs to be bigger, let me know. Whenever I'm saying something like that, it usually means I saw someone squint. So don't be afraid to tell me to make it bigger. Everybody got it? Whee! All right. Again, we made something new work, so I'm going to go ahead and make a commit. Git add dot, git commit dash m. I'm going to say change paragraph text and buttons clicked or clocked. Git push. Yes, sir.
Do that. I'm not missing something.
Let's see your HTML.
Yeah.
So you have an extra, yeah. And while it is not illegal anymore, I wouldn't put spaces around the equal signs there. It's not a programming language. It's just an attribute or value, attribute and value. Yeah, I'd squish those. Yeah, it's just how most people write HTML. So.